Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. I am so glad that you are here today as we talk about all the books that I read in the month of April. I do apologize ahead of time for the background noise. I'm on sprints right now and I'm hosting the sprint. So if I mute my computer, I don't think anyone else can hear the sound. So I'm just going to have fireplace sounds in the background of this video. And that's okay. So I have quite a few books to talk about. A normal amount of books, I would say. I think about 12, which is pretty amazing considering I was in a slump at the beginning of the month. Not a major slump. I still read a little bit, but I also DNF'd a couple things and just didn't want to pick up books. I watched some shows, I did some other things, but then I got out of the slump and we'll talk about all of that. So I have quite a few books to talk about with you today. I'm going to start with my two Patreon books. I have my Patreon pick and my Patreon book club book. And for my book club, I read The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. This was a lovely, magical, not as cozy and cute as I thought it was going to be. It was a little bit heavier than I was expecting, but it was historical, dual timelines, and we follow Opaline in the past timeline and Martha in the present day timeline. And both of these women experienced some really difficult things. There's some domestic violence in here. There's a little section about an asylum, which I was not expecting. In the past timeline, Opaline becomes a rare book seller, and in the process, she comes across some shady characters, and she also gets connected to this shop in Ireland, not at the time called the Lost Bookshop. It just was this curiosity shop that she kind of takes over and starts to run, turning it more and more into a bookshop. We follow Opaline in all of her story, and then in the more present day timeline, we follow Martha, who is on the run from her abusive husband, takes a job as a housekeeper, a live-in housekeeper for this elderly woman, and lives in the basement of her house in the little housekeeping room that's down there. And things start happening that are a little bit quirky. And she meets Henry, who is on the hunt, actively on the hunt for the Lost Bookshop, which is supposedly right next door to the home where Martha is living. These storylines all intersect and intertwine, and I really, really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Some of the relationships at the beginning started out with a little bit of adultery, and I didn't love that. And the present day storylines, Martha's and Henry's, had a little bit of cursing that I didn't feel was necessary. So I think overall, it just prevented me from fully loving this book, but it was very good, and I gave it 4 stars, and I really, really enjoyed talking about this with my patrons. The other book that I had to read because of my Patreon was a recommendation, and it was Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. Guys, I definitely am an outlier on this book. I did not love it. Many, many people have loved this and said that it made them cry, and there were some tragic parts of this story for sure. But our main storyline was this wife who has a wonderful husband, Frank, #justice for Frank. Beth and Frank are farmers, and very early on in the story, someone moves into the farm nearby, and it is Beth's first love, basically, a boy that she knew when she was in high school, and he has come back he's now divorced from his wife, comes back with his 11-ish-year-old son, and Beth gets reconnected with this man from her past, and does start up an affair with him, and it lasts throughout the story. It's devastating, and there are a lot of other twists and turns and tragedies along the way, but the main feeling that I left with from this book was anger. I just was so mad at her, and for the way that she was destroying people's lives, including mainly her own, because of the choices that she was making. And she knew that she was making bad choices. She knew she was hurting her husband. She acknowledges all of that. And so it just made me really, really angry. Frank, her husband, was a wonderful man. And as you learn more things about their lives as the book goes on, he becomes even more and more wonderful in my mind. And it just was really frustrating to me. So I don't like leaving a book feeling frustrated. And I did with this one. There were some scenes that made me well up with tears. Some surprises, but it just overall, and it was well written, I guess, but it just left me feeling frustrated. And since reading is subjective, I just didn't like that. Then I will talk about the 3 books quickly that I DNF'd this month. One of them being This Chunker by Any Other Name by Jodi Picoult. I really wanted to love this book. Number 1, it's gorgeous. Number 2, it's about a playwright who potentially actually wrote Shakespeare's plays, and a present day playwright who's connected to that past storyline. I was very interested about these women authors wanting to get into the playwriting world. I was very interested in that story. However, our past character, Amelia, becomes a courtesan, and that might not be the right word. Her family sells her to another guy, basically, when she's quite young, teenager. It goes into some great detail about the things that she's learning about how to pleasure a man, and then their sexual exploits, and then her affair that she has with another young man. I only made it probably 18 to 20% into this book. I really was disappointed, but I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, sorry, no more sexual exploits for me, please. Another book that I DNF'd was Bet On It. I forget who the author was. It's one of my NetGalley books. I only made it maybe 8 to 10% in this one. Not filled with language, but the language that they were using was crude and inappropriate in my mind for a rom-com. I just don't think that it fit the vibes of the book. And the way that the characters were talking about each other, I could just tell it was going to be more open door than what I wanted. I didn't care about the storyline that was getting set up, and I just didn't care. The 3rd book that I DNF'd was The Tweford Code by Janice Hallett. I was like 60 to 70% into this one when I DNF'd it. I just didn't care anymore, which was so disappointing because I really have loved the appeal and I really enjoyed The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels, but this one wasn't working for me. So I tried reading in print. I tried listening to the audiobook. Neither one was really working for me. There was a lot of bleeped out language, which was fine. Our main character was a ex-con. There was a teacher that had gone missing when they were kids and nobody really talks about it, and he's trying to figure out what really happened. He gets involved with these other people. It just got to a point where I just didn't care. I'm like, I don't care about these characters. I don't care about how it happens. I don't even know the answer because I just don't care. So that was a bummer, a big bummer, because I have liked her in the past. The book that got me out of my reading slump, friends, was Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. I loved this book. I knew that I would because I loved the Farseer trilogy, which is the first trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings. This is the start of the second trilogy, which is Live Ship Traders trilogy. This is book 1, Ship of Magic. It is a 35-hour audiobook. It's super long. I don't know how long this book is. I didn't even open it. I just listened to the whole thing. 800-ish, 805, 807. It's a fantasy set on a ship. There are these live ships that come alive because they're made of wizard wood. We follow a ship named the Vivacia. We watch her come alive. She's owned by the Vestrit family, and there's some family drama involved. The patriarch of the family passes away very early on in the story, and his one daughter is kind of cast out. His other daughter married a jerk, and it's about their kids and the matriarch of the family. Like, it's just so twisty-turny, so many different aspects to the story. It got me out of my slump. I was invested in this story from beginning to end. Absolutely loved it. Excited to continue. Get so frustrated with some of the characters, and there's a character in here, there's a pirate, and I just still don't know if he's good or bad, which I kind of love because he does sometimes the right thing but for the wrong motivations. I'm like, if you do the right thing but even if it's for the wrong motivation, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. So there's one character that is very morally gray to me, and some other characters that you just really don't like, and yeah, I loved it. It got me out of my slump. I'm excited about that. So yay, yay, yay for Ship of Magic. 2 others, that one was on my Flip and Roll TBR, and so was By Any Other Name, which I DNF'd, and then I did have 2 more that I finished from my Flip and Roll TBR. One of them is a biblical fiction called Up From Dust by Heather Kaufman. This is a story of Martha, who's sister with Mary and Lazarus, who are friends with Jesus. They live in Bethany, just outside of Jerusalem, and they host Jesus and the disciples multiple times. But we kind of follow Martha from a younger age and all the way through her experiences that are in the Bible. specifically when the disciples come and Martha complains that Mary's not helping her in the kitchen, and Jesus says Mary has chosen the better thing. And then the story of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead is in here. So all of these stories that are so well known from the Bible were a part of this, but it was so interesting to just kind of get a potential description of Martha and her character beyond the biblical stories. Of course, it's not scripture and it's just speculation, but biblical fiction stories just help me to empathize and remember that these characters or people in the Bible were real people. They were human beings with emotions and feelings and failures. And it just was interesting to consider a fuller life for Martha than the few stories that we have of her and what we know about her. So I did really enjoy this. I think I gave it 4 stars. I just really enjoy biblical fiction. And then the last book from my flip and roll TBR, my planned TBR, is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I had to read a series book that was out of my comfort zone. So I picked up this one, which is a cozy fantasy. I don't know that I've read very many cozy fantasies, probably some, but this one I feel like was a bit overhyped. It was cute. It was fine. We follow an orc named Viv who wants to open up a coffee shop, and it's literally her opening up a coffee shop and the struggles of finding a building and where to put it and how to do things and introduce coffee to this group of people, characters, species who've never had coffee before, most of them. And so we meet some of the people who come in and work with her. There is a little bit of stakes with the kind of like a mobster vibe of this character who comes to collect taxes for like the mob boss. And so that storyline was a little bit interesting. It was fine. All the way through, I'm just like, nah, it's cute. Like, it just didn't excite me. I wasn't eager to keep reading it. I'm giving it 3 stars. It was fine. And I'm unhauling this and Bookshops and Bone Dust. I'm not going to continue. I don't feel like I need to. But I read it. I did it. I have 7 more books to talk about. I need to go quickly because I'm on sprints and I have a time limit. 4 of the books that I read continued or finished series for me. So I'm really excited about that. So I'll talk about the 2 that I don't actually have. So I'll put pictures up here. I recently finished The Peasants Dream by Melanie Dickerson. This is the last book in her Hagenheim series, which is kind of fairy tale retellings, YA Christian fiction fairy tale retelling series. The Peasant's Dream was a gender swapped Cinderella story. So our male character is a peasant. He works his family farm. His dad is drunk all the time, has a lame leg, and is quite abusive. But this dude has a dream of carving wood. He's very gifted at carving wood. So he kind of has an opportunity to bring some of his carvings to a market in Hagenheim where he meets the daughter of the Duke. And they strike up a friendship. She doesn't tell him that she's the daughter of the Duke. He doesn't really tell her much about his life at the beginning, and they just start to connect and befriend each other. So it was cute. It was fine. Not really much to talk about, but it did finish a series for me, so I love that. Then I read Sunrise on the Reaping because the FOMO was for real. I just wanted to read it because everybody seems to be reading it. This is by Suzanne Collins, and it is the next installment of the Hunger Games series. It's like a prequel to the actual Hunger Games trilogy. It takes place in between Ballad of Songbird and Snakes and the Hunger Games trilogy. And it follows Haymitch, who is one of the characters in the Hunger Games. He is the mentor for Katniss and Peeta. And we follow Haymitch during his Hunger Games, in which he was the victor. We know that from the main series. But we follow his life before the Hunger Games, how he ended up getting his name drawn, and then his time in the games. It was so good. I absolutely am one who loves the Hunger Games, and I didn't even mind Ballad of Songbird and Snake. It was different, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was okay. I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. But this one I loved. I think I gave it 5 stars. I was just very invested. Haymitch really grew on me in the main trilogy. And so I was very eager to hear more of his story and see what happened to him to turn him into the character that he is in the trilogy. So good. It was so good. I can't really tell you more than that, but it's devastating. I cried a couple times. Like, just such a well-written story. And it was definitely very pacey. Like, I was not wanting to put it down. I think I read the whole thing in a day and a half, 2 days tops. Like, it was just really, really good. Another series that I continued is A Great Reckoning. This is one of the ones that I read at the very beginning of the month. Just random, wasn't part of my TBR, but I just had an urge to read it. And so I did. This is the book 12, I want to say, in the Armand Gamache mystery series by Louise Penny. Yeah, I can't really tell you much about it because it spoils other books, but this one involves the kind of like police academy, the police academy, and there's a death at the police academy, and 4 young cadets are involved in some way, and Armand Gamache is, of course, involved as well. And I really love this series. I forget how much I love it. When I get back to the books, I'm like, oh yeah, I really love this. So I'm now getting closer and closer to being caught up. So I would love to read 1 or 2 more this year and hopefully get even closer. But it's been over a year since I read the last one. Hopefully I don't wait quite as long to read the next one. But yeah, this was 4 stars. Really, really good. The last series book that I read is The Weed That Strings the Hangman's Bag by Alan Bradley. This is the second book in the Flavia de Luce series. And I think I'm going to unhaul the few books that I have in the series and DNF this series. I finished this book. It was okay. I do really like Flavia de Luce, but I just don't care as much about this series overall as so many of my other mystery series I have going on. I would rather read Maisie Jobs. I would rather read Myrtle Hardcastle, which is a middle grade series. This also has an 11 to 12-year-old protagonist who's very interested in science. The science bits were way over my head. She's into chemistry. She's like mixing things and figuring out how to make chocolates taste like sulfur and like basically slightly poisoning somebody who eats them. Like, there's a lot of science in here, which I don't care as much about. But in this one, a traveling puppet show comes to her little town, and the puppeteer on the last night of the show is electrocuted, and she helps discover, like, she basically tells the policeman how it happened because she figures everything out. Of course, slightly unbelievable, but also she's got a way into people's hearts and conversations that the police wouldn't have. So possibly it could have happened. I don't know. That wasn't even the problem. I enjoyed the story of it, except that I kept falling asleep during the end. I was listening to it on audio. I had to listen to the ending maybe 3 times because I kept falling asleep. Not a good sign. So that is going to be unhauled, and I'm going to take that series off of my series list. Then the last 3 that I have are all books for my recommendations cart. I've started a tag in Libby for my recommendations cart. I don't have everything in there, but I have a lot of books in there. And so when I'm just in a place where I can pick a random book, I can see what's available now and then pick from those choices. And that's how I decided on these 3. So the first one I read early in the month is The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. I needed something kind of light, kind of fluffy, and this fit the bill for that. And I really appreciated, I know Sarah Adams in her newer books is getting into some open door scenes, but what I really appreciate is right at the beginning, she gets on there and says, I know some of you come to my books because you don't want those scenes. So if you're one of those people, just skip chapter 34. I was like, sweet. So I got to chapter 34 and I skipped right ahead. I don't feel like I missed out on anything. But this is sort of a sequel to the cheat sheet. I think some of the characters from the cheat sheet are also in this one. I listened to this while I was painting my guest room. So it was quite a while ago now. It feels like forever ago. But in this one, we follow a female sports manager. Is that her title? Struggling because it's a very male-dominated field. So her and another woman who are about the only females in the office have to fight for their place. But her first client on her own is her ex from college. And there's a lot of unfinished business there. So it's kind of fun watching them. It's a little bit enemies to lovers, like I said. It was cute, nothing to write home about, and not a book that I need to keep on my shelf. So then another book for my rec cart that I listened to was The Lady's Mine by Francine Rivers. This is not my favorite Francine Rivers. It takes place in gold mining town and very predictable. This wealthy woman from Boston gets kind of sent out there. She's older, she's single, she refuses to marry. So her stepdad wants her kind of out of the picture. He sends her some money and says, go find your great uncle. When she shows up, her uncle has passed away. He is no longer living. So she kind of gets stuck with his printing press and gruff saloon slash hotel owner who, of course, they fall in love, and it's just set in like the Wild West. It's a mining town, so there's a huge mine run by basically a mobster, and it was fun, but not exactly my favorite Francine Rivers. The last book that I have to talk about is The How and the Why by Cynthia Hand. This is one of my Christmas book exchange books. It is a YA about adoption. And so we follow this young woman who was adopted when she was very young, infant, and she just turned 18, and she's very curious about her birth mother. So basically this book is her deciding how to search for her birth mom and if she's going to tell her parents. She's got a very loving set of adopted parents and is concerned about talking to them about it. She doesn't want to hurt their feelings. Her adoptive mother is very sick. That's another thing she doesn't want to put on her mom's plate. But then we also have a series of letters written from the birth mom when she was in this home for unwed mothers back in the day, like before our main character was born, Cass. So we read these letters written to Dear X as the birth mom. So we get to know the birth mom quite a bit and see her story and why she ended up in this home and why she's deciding to place her baby up for adoption. And it was really good. What I appreciated is that our main character was 18, and she felt, at first I was like, she feels so young. But then I'm like, does she, or does she feel like a normal 18-year-old? Sometimes YA books makes an 18-year-old feel like a 30-year-old. This one, she was just an 18-year-old kid, still struggling to figure things out. Her best friend was fantastic, so supportive. Of course, they get into a fight. They're both involved in theater, and they're both very talented at what they do. So they're kind of like, they go back and forth between getting the lead roles, but they're very supportive of each other. It just was, there was a lot to really like about this book. It brought me to tears multiple times. I have a personal connection to adoption with my family, having adopted siblings and stuff. So I appreciated the adoption storyline. And I loved getting to see that the birth mom, like getting to see the birth mother's side of things. Yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed this, The How and the Why by Cynthia Hand. And that is it. Those are the 12-ish books that I read throughout the month of April. I'm so glad to say that my slump is busted. Bust that slump. And I'm excited for my May read. So thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me for a little bit as we talked about all the books that I read in the month of April. I would love to hear what were some of your favorites from the month. Have you read any of these? Are you adding any of them to your TBR? I would love to hear which ones stand out to you. And if you've made it this far, but you don't really have anything to add in the comments, add some kind of a ship emoji. There's got to be something like a boat of some sort, right? Because this is my slump buster book of the month. So put some kind of a ship emoji in the comments, or a pirate. Is there a pirate? I don't know. Just to let me know that you were here and that you were hanging out with me for a little bit. I really appreciate all of you for being here, and I can't wait to chat with you in another video very soon. Bye.